Hello all, Gamer1745 here, and this is going to be a special episode on politics. So if you don't want that and you want gameplay, just say goodbye, see you later. I want to speak about this. I didn't want to interrupt the normal sort of episode, so you can click off now if you don't want to. Okay, those of you that are still here, this is going to be covering National Socialism, Socialism, or Democratic Socialism, and Communism. This is prompted by two recent posters, one very nice and friendly, the other one, well, he wasn't unfriendly, but I deleted his post and thread. Okay, so we'll get into this a bit here, but I want to first start out and say something. I want to make it very, very clear. Not only am I not a Nazi, I think Nazis are very evil people. I have no use for them. If you guys, and I'm not into all of the crypto-Nazi symbology of the modern stuff. I've watched a few documentaries, but I don't study modern Aryan Nazi movements, so a lot of it's lost to me, and I'm sorry I can't easily click over right now, but one of the posters starts with an M. Very glad that you sort of clued me in on what one of the people was meaning by, I think it was 1488, and I do know 88 has something to do with like what, Heil Hitler or something like that, but comes out of the prison system, I think. Again, that's about as far as I know of what's going on. If you're welcome to watch, because I like to speak to people who disagree with me, but if you're going to be posting any sort of crypto-Nazi or uncrypto-Nazied posts, yeah, they're just going to get deleted, and I have no use for you doing that. It is just something that is supporting the mass killings of people is just something I'm just not going to tolerate on my channel, because it is my channel. You have freedom of speech. Go get your own channel. Do it there, and I'm sure there's a bunch of them. Well, I don't know on YouTube if there's a bunch, but somewhere there's a bunch of places for you, and I'm not trying to suppress your speech in the world. It's just not here. So you're welcome to watch Modern Nazis, and if you want to, I don't know, discuss non-political things like tiger tanks or something, and I don't even know you're a Nazi, fine. But if you're going to start doing political stuff, I have no use for you. I want to make that very clear. None of what I do here, though I am very fascinated by the original Nazis, Hitler and his crew. I'm fascinated by it, but I'm not one of them. This is not a fascination that attracts me politically. I am on the right of the political spectrum, but I see Nazis as either an aberration of the right or a pseudo-leftist type ideology. So, and that's why we're sort of discussing National Socialism, Socialism, and Communism here. So I just want to make that very clear. And so, yeah. And another poster, should have written these things down. It was recently posted at the beginning. And it's like, Tipu Sultan is popping into my mouth, but my brain, but it's not that. And he was Indian guy, but was recently posting, and some very thoughtful stuff. And he says he would love to be part of the live chat, but just scheduling can't make it, and I totally understand. And asked some very interesting questions, and thought I should be more precise, because he did eventually say that he's German, and when I'm sort of mixing up social democracy of Sweden and the communism of the Soviet Union, I should be more precise. And here's the reason I'm often not, and I'm putting them in the same category, is, and trust me, I'm a political science major. I know the different political groups. It doesn't mean, you know, some recent Hungarian party that I know it's whether right, left, or center. I know it's political ideology. No, I'm not claiming, you know, everywhere, anywhere, but the basic political tenets and thoughts, I know them fairly well. And this is where we're getting on to socialism and communism, which is, communism is just sort of socialism. I don't have the good quote in front of me. I should prepare these things a little better, but I do believe that very early on in Lenin's taking over of Russia, in the very early stages before the Bolshevik, sort of in the Menshevik revolution. I'm sorry if I'm getting a little of this. In the early stages, he called it, at least at one point, the Bolsheviks were democratic socialists, as a way to not scare everybody else who wasn't a hardcore revolutionary communist. Now, why do I want to put these two groups together? And there's a whole, you know, and you can get into it, and I can't give you a just how is Maoism different than Marxist-Leninism, and how is Marxism different than Marxist-Leninism? Well, Marxist-Leninism is Marxism adjusted by Lenin, and then obviously it gets hijacked by others, whether, I don't know if Trotsky's thought would be Marxist-Leninism, or Stalin hijacks Marxist-Leninism. And so, you know, it's, you know, there's all different shades, and I can't quite tell you the different, you know, shades of, you know, Pol Pot. Yeah, I know, you know, Cambodia. He wanted to, you know, one of his, you know, when the Pol Pot's, the Khmer Rouge takes over Cambodia, you know, the New York Times, communist revolution in Cambodia succeeds, or something like that, means a better life for most. This is back in what, 1975, 73. Sorry, I'm not really good on dates. It was post 73, maybe 75, 76, I forget. But takes over. So this is not that long ago, within living memory of mine, me, when, and I didn't remember this, I was way too young at the time, but I remember 1975. Supposedly centrist New York Times, say supposedly, you know, better for most, better lives for most. So they're already on the communist bandwagon. And of course, Pol Pot kills, what, about a third of the Cambodian people? Just 2 or 3 million. Cambodia wasn't that highly populated country. And of course, he kills everybody with glasses. Because presumably, if you have glasses, you know how to read. So he shoots everybody, has everybody shot who has glasses. Because he wants to go back to sort of zero level base information and re-educate society, and doesn't want educated people who disagree with Pol Pot's extremist viewpoints. It is so bad in Khmer Rouge, Red Khmer, Red Cambodia. In Red Cambodia, it is so bad, this communist revolution. It is such an evil revolutionary regime, and it's sort of just tootling along just fine. But it is so bad that the Vietnamese communists, who now own, you know, all of Vietnam, no longer North and South, all of Vietnam, I think it was 78, but again, if somebody wants to post it. But so just in a few short years, and he kills a couple million people, is so bad that the Vietnamese communists invade Vietnam in a massive way to take over the country, to stomp out the Khmer Rouge. Now, they continue on as a guerrilla movement until, I think, the 90s or something. The Khmer Rouge hang on, fighting everybody, you know, the West, the communists. They continue the fight against the Vietnamese. But the Vietnamese communists, and that has to be proved by either the Soviet Union at the time, and which was a major sponsor of the Vietnamese communists, and or the Chinese communists. You know, so either one or both of them had to approve, because one, you're not going to be invading another communist state, because you need support from one of the two major powers, if not both of them, back in those days in the 70s. So it's so bad in there that the communists themselves need to clean this up. So those of you who want to support a communist revolution are just, it's in a different way, but are just about as evil as any Nazi out there. Now, and so because you support Stalin kills many more people than Hitler. So pure body count, pure lives killed. Stalin kills more than Hitler, and Mao kills more than Stalin. Okay? Mao may have killed more, or maybe many of his deaths are just via starvation and other things like that. Now, of course, many of the deaths via both Hitler and Stalin are via starvation. Hitler's starvation is mostly during the war and in the East, and much of the Stalinist starvation is the Holodomor in Ukraine. So it's not all just killing them in camps, but all of them are very culpable towards mass extinction of humanity. And you may go say, but I'm not a communist. Or maybe I'm an idealist communist, but I'm not a Stalinist. Okay. Well, if you're going to use force to not just take over a piece of land, because, you know, I don't know. I think the world maybe can get together. Maybe we can find an island or some location that we could buy or something, compensate the people for, and all you communists could just go there. Where, you know, I don't know whether it's Madagascar or Corsica or Bulgaria, or, you know, pick a place in the world, and you guys can all go there, and anyone who gets tired of communism could leave, and you just all want to voluntarily do communism. Okay, I would actually love, quite honestly, I would love to see that experiment where you get no arms. Anybody who, you know, anybody who stops living the communist lifestyle in some way, you get to, you know, kick them out, go away. You go to non-communist country. But I'd love to see that experiment, to see if on a large scale you could make communism work, not by force, but by voluntary people going there. And if people don't comply, say goodbye. I'd sort of like that, and I don't know, maybe it's becoming Texas in America, is, oh, you don't like conservative market economics in Texas? Bye-bye. Go somewhere else. You know, just leave. You know, because this is what we're doing, kind of thing. I don't live in Texas. I don't like the weather, but I may have to move there because I want to get there. Now, back to democratic socialists. Okay, I'm going to read a couple of, and why I lump it together with communism. And democratic socialists are not, generally speaking, communist revolutionaries. They're communist progressives. Because let me read to you from the Democratic Socialists of America's own website. Okay, Democratic Socialists believe that both the economy and society should be run democratically to meet human needs, not to make profits for a few. We are a political and activist organization, not a party. Through campus and community-based chapters, the DSA members use a variety of tactics, from legislation to direct action. Direct action generally means violence. Could mean a gun. We saw them shoot up the Republican congressional baseball team, including Steve Scalise, Congressman Scalise. So direct action is violence. Direct action, from legislative to direct action. Direct action is a euphemism for violence, because direct action is not putting out leaflets, you know, vote for the Democratic Socialists, or vote for, and one of the, not just the two postings that are prompting this, we, in the U.S. and New York City, state, wherever, the sort of number 2 Democrat in the House of Representatives, 10-term Democrat, who was slated to replace Nancy Pelosi as the minority leader or majority leader, the head of the Democratic caucus in the House of Representatives, lost to someone who was running in the Democratic primary, but she is a Democratic Socialist, and I do believe a member or whatever of the Democratic Socialists of America. So direct action is not simply a leaflets or standing in front of Congress or a congressional office members, not their home but their office out in the the districts with signs, support this or we're against that. That's not direct action. Direct action is violence. Now it may just be unlawful protesting, meaning like storming into the office and occupying it, forcing through physical pressure, through physical force, the inability of the people to work there. That is direct action. It doesn't always mean a gun, but we do have at least one major case in which direct action of someone who is a Democrat, Bernie socialist type person who tried to assassinate a bunch of Republican congressmen at a baseball training session. Okay? So direct action is a violent, so some legislature to direct action to fight. I'm going to continue reading from to direct action, comma, to fight. That's fight. They're using fight for reforms and the empowerment of working people. That paragraph is from their website. This isn't me describing them. This is them describing themselves. Okay? Now, from Wikipedia. Wikipedia can be unreliable. Wikipedia can be rewritten, can be manipulated, but I think they keep reasonably good watch over it. It is footnoted what I'm going to be reading to you, just a paragraph from it. And the Democratic Socialists, I'm sure, are monitoring this, and if something that they see is highly inaccurate, they'll get in there and get it edited, I'm sure. Because it's Wikipedia, you can get it edited. I've actually, a long time ago, sort of got editor status for a few things and was doing some stuff way back when. Nothing big, nothing major, but just, be able to get the permission to go in and edit some pages on some topics. Not on these, but on other things. So I know the process. So they could change this if they felt it needed to be changed. And so let me read this. The Democratic Socialists of America sees itself as a big tent and multi-tendency organization with members expressing a wide range of social and anti-capitalistic views. Then there's two citations. I'm not going to read them, but they're down at the bottom of the page. DSA members have views ranging from eco-socialism, democratic socialism, revolutionary socialism, libertarian socialism, and Marxist-Leninism to social democracy. Some of these views are represented in different working groups and caucuses within the Democratic Socialists, including the Communist Caucus, the Refoundation Caucus, don't know exactly what that is, and the Libertarian Social Caucus. Okay? So, I can't trust. Now, somebody can tell me, and I believe the poster was saying, hey, I'm Democratic Socialist, but, or social, a Democrat, I guess, sorry, a social Democrat in Germany. I just, I believe that, you should keep capitalism from getting out of hand and have good social programs for the people? Okay. Now, and I asked him, I haven't got a reply back, didn't wait for it to make this. My question to him is, are you a socialist who tolerates capitalism, or are you a capitalist who wants a big social safety net? And so both those positions could support the current situation in Germany, but if you were going to make direct changes, which direction would most likely you support? That's sort of the question, to him and to people. So if you are and if you listen to this woman's rhetoric who's been on television recently, they want universal this, universal that. Basically, they are going to take away property from people to give it to other people. That's what they're going to do. They're going to take stuff from some people. Oh, and to take something from me or anybody else, you need force. They're going to use force to take things from people and give them to other people. How they decide is fair. Okay? How they decide is fair. And so this group, it's a big tent, multi-tendency. Not sure what multi-tendency means. And it's highlighted. I could go, but I don't know really how they would be using it. And so, and they even say that they support within their group are Marxism-Leninism types within this group. So these are people that support what Lenin did. Now that doesn't mean they're necessarily full-on Stalinists, but there are people who believe in shooting. Okay, so if you believe in socialism and you're willing to use force to have it, then what are you going to do with people like me? Are you planning on killing me because I am not or never will be on board with the socialist program? If I were to say somehow do internet underground postings, about freedom and capitalism, are you going to send your Cheka, your KGB, your GRU, your whatever, to hunt me down and eliminate me? Are you going to, oh no, we're not going to kill you, gamer. We're just going to put you in prison for the rest of your life, put you in a gulag. Is that what you're going to do to someone like me who is not going to get on board with your social democracy? Now you may be saying, no, we're a socialist. We're a democratic socialist. Okay. Well, what happens to 1%, 5%, 10%, 49%? Because let's just say you got a majority. You get power by the simple majority of 51%. What are you going to do with the people that reject your philosophy and refuse to go along with it? Oh, you're going to use the instruments of the state, the police and the army, to forcibly remove people from land. Or you're going to allow local death squads, popular death squads, to come in to kill landowners who claim that this land is theirs, and these other people that are building houses on it are just squatters, and kill them off. How are you going to enforce your socialism on other people if they don't? Because I get the idea that democratic socialists, which are different maybe than social democrats, but how you are going to impose your will on the minority who disagree, and how far are you willing to go to do that? Are you willing to take away my property? My property, I'm talking euphemistically, could be a huge factory. My property could be a single home dwelling. It could be a small store. How much are you going to take away from me to give to other people for whatever needs. Now, a libertarian believes that you have the complete right to your property. And they grudgingly recognize, at least in America, that, yeah, there's a world out there and it's a dangerous place. So, yeah, we have to have an army and a few other things like that we have to have. So the state, or as you would put it, is the organized element of society, can take away a little bit from you, but only as much as it needs to do minimum security, have an army, an air force, a navy, do just, sort of minimum government stuff, and then everything else, anything beyond that, they have absolutely no right to. That's sort of an extreme on one side, and I'm not trying to advocate for that. I recognize that there are government needs, and people collectively need to pay for it. I'm not arguing against that. But if you describe yourself as a socialist of any format, now a social democrat may be a bit different than a democratic socialist, but if you're a socialist, you are an anti-capitalist. That's different than being a capitalist who wants some social welfare programs because they recognize they are somewhere between being needed and useful. But they're still fundamentally a capitalist who wants some level, maybe a high level, maybe a minimum level, but some level of social welfare system, but they are at heart a capitalist. But if you are at heart a socialist, you believe in socialism. And your only limitations are one of two things. One, and the poster said, and I both want to recognize them and don't want to recognize them in the sense that I don't want them to be hammered by people. I'm not afraid to say what I believe. Okay, you're not, and I totally believe him that he's not afraid to say what he believes. But if you're a guy who's going to run for office, and I've done that before, run for office unsuccessfully, so wasn't very good at it, obviously. But if you're going to run for office, and you have a view that will mean you won't be elected, you're going to be afraid to say that view because your goal is, well, some people, yeah, they run for whatever Communist Party or whatever, and they know they're, in America, and this is, at least this has been how it mostly is, they know they're never going to get elected, but they just want somebody from the Communist Party to be on the ballot so they could point, yeah, we got 1.5% of the vote this year. Last time it was only 0.5%. So we've increased it by 3 times. They just have somebody running. But people who actively want to run in the sort of political system in a country, it's sort of like if you're a Nazi in Germany and you want to hold office, because of the legal system in Germany, you can't say you're a Nazi. You might. And there were various parties that did get some people voting for them back in the 50s and 60s. Were sort of closet Nazis, if you will. They were, some of them had been former Nazis, but, in the West German government. And, we're just nationalists now. Why we reject all that other stuff. They made open and public claims that they weren't Nazis. They were just whatever the new flavor was. We're reformed. We're not these old things. Well, all the people that were sort of Nazis voted for them because that's what they supported. These people, because of the legal system in Germany, you can't be an open Nazi and get a seat in Germany. I know there's some new anti-immigrant parties running in Germany right now and have been doing reasonably well. And I don't know whether they are truly just we're being flooded with people of very different cultures and we want to feed all of our kids in school pork because we are the land of pig eaters. That's not a pejorative statement. Germany, you are the land of pig eaters, and I love my bacon and sausage too. Not criticizing you for it, but you're the land of pig eaters. And all these people are coming in are anti-pig eating. You know, just on that simple basis. These people are coming in and going, you mean I have to eat pig every day to be in Germany? And they're, you know, that's what you need to do to be German, is eat pig. You know, I'm being a bit facetious, but still the idea that, do you want to have all of your children being fed school lunches or breakfasts or whatever, and that, of course, it's pork. And we don't distinguish between pork and anything else because pork is just a natural part. And then you got this flood of people coming in that don't eat pork. Now, of course, they could be Jews. I'm not trying to select out a specific group of people. I'm just saying people that have a different culture are coming into Germany. And people may be just going, oh, whoa, wait a minute. We didn't sign up for this massive different people coming in and it's causing problems. If it's just that, then fine. That's the German people's decision, and I'm fine with it. I'm not going to say I support it because it's what they want to do for their country. But if it's a closet Nazi group, then I'm not fine with it. And see, I don't know enough German, I don't know enough of the situation, and I don't trust the media and the left to accurately describe the difference between these groups. So I don't know. And yes, I get some news reports, and I can't remember all of, you know, the different acronyms, you know, the initials of these different new political parties and movements. But, so, this is my problem with socialism, is that there will be people that, yes, back in the 70s and whenever, and maybe to this day, there's still a certain number of, in Italy, certain number of communist representatives in parliament and whatnot. Fine. But in other countries, in America, traditionally, 4 or 5 years ago, if you called somebody a socialist outside of Bernie Sanders, you were a racist, you were a bigot, you were whatever. Now they're just, hey, we're all socialists now, and we're, you know, the Democratic Socialists of America are running in the Democratic Party, and they're winning primaries, and so we're all just socialists now. So it's gone from being, oh no, you can't call me that, to yes, that's what we always have been and are now. So it's sort of this crypto thing, and I can't distinguish the difference between it. And I do agree that a lot of people in the progressive movement believe that once people get shown the light, get educated, they're just all going to naturally go along, and they're looking at the long view, but they're looking at still at the communist viewpoint. Now, I want to jump to the other part: National Socialism, fascism, and the right. And a few people, do I make such distinctions, or I don't, since I don't make these distinctions easily or generally between democratic socialists, sort of hardcore socialists, sort of communist revolutionaries, they're all just sort of heading down this evil road. Well, what about on the right? Okay, there's some massive differences, and as I'm still continuing to study all of this, and particularly my interest recently has been National Socialism, but there are some very distinctive differences, okay? Again, okay, I don't want to try to. There is sort of on the American right, it's traditionally been patriarchal societies. The Democrats have generally been a patriarchal organization within America. That's why they were very much in the South, supported slavery. It's the sort of paternalism of governance, of grand estates, the paternalism of Tammany Hall, and a bunch of the sort of Chicago and New York political systems. Democrats have been paternalisms. Now, of course, paternalism is one of the evil things. And I've now heard on national television, a few of these leftists, that they're moving away from paternalism and moving to maternal society. They want to destroy America. Again, these democratic socialists want to destroy America. No, that doesn't mean blow up bombs and kill lots of people. They want to destroy the society. And the reason, and they're in the, and you may go, no, they don't want to destroy society. Bullshit. Because they want to destroy the patriarchy. And since we are still primarily a patriarchy, they want to destroy this society. Oh, they just want equal rights. No, they are now actually saying it. They want to have a matriarchy. They believe matrianism. Women will be less violent, more socially organizing, more whatever, and they want to destroy and flip the society. All the women's studies courses have switched over to gender studies, but they still just sort of study and promote women. It is trying to destroy our society as it is because it is patriarchal. I'm not, and if you notice, I'm not saying anything against women or equality. And societies develop over time, but they are specifically wanted to tear it down, to eliminate it, to say, oh, well, how many business leaders are men and how many are women? Does it matter? I thought we were all the same, except for our plumbing. Does it matter if the men are in charge or the women are in charge? Oh, well, we need to have equal numbers of women. Really? Well, what if we have more than enough women? What if we have 60% women? Should we make sure we get some more men in? Oh, no, we can't do that. They are a matriarchal element that are trying to destroy our society, not just let it change and evolve slowly over time where, and I'm totally for, hey, if the woman is the best person to run the company, great, that's a wonderful thing. But the idea that we need a woman in charge of X number of companies is a bad thing because we need the best people in charge of the companies or the whatever it is, not need an X number of this or that. Okay, back to National Socialism and Fascism and such. Okay. As I'm still studying National Socialism, and since National Socialism has made a lot of conflictory statements, there is no one thinker, there is no one Bible or book, and before you start bringing up Mein Kampf, Albert Speer was at one point, this was well after Hitler was in power, Albert Speer was talking to Hitler and said, well, I'm working my way through Mein Kampf to, read it all. And Hitler said, don't bother. I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm very close. And if you don't trust me, go read Inside the Third Reich by Albert Speer. And it's been many, many years since I've read it. So, yes, I could have some details wrong. But I think he was walking up to the tea house with Hitler or something, in some conversation like that he was recounting with him. Hitler says, don't bother with that. That's already no longer relevant or something like that. And so basically, Speer, and I've never gotten through Mein Kampf. I own a copy. It's on my shelf, but so is Das Kapital. So it's just because I have a copy of it don't mean I support it. It means I've tried to understand it. And it's the English translation. It's sort of very hard to get through. So I haven't completely, I forget, it's been more than 30 years since I've read anything out of it. And I think I got, I don't know, a third, halfway through something. But so there is no good, this is National Socialism documents, because they say a lot of conflictatorial things. That is an important element to understanding National Socialism. But we'll look at one, National Socialism is an ideology. I'm talking about, again, National Socialism of Adolf Hitler's Germany, not some other, because we have international socialism, communism, or a lot of democratic socialist type movements that recognize that there are borders but want the sort of EU kind of thing and sort of universal, so they're international socialists. So you can come up with a national socialism that has nothing to do with race. It can be a multiracial country, theoretically, and it just sort of wants to do socialism for its country. And so it would be National Socialism. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about National Socialism of Hitler. And that whole socialism part was just a camouflage that Hitler puts on the party, very much so. But in a way, he does so because Hitler is anti-capitalistic. He is not anti-private property, but he is anti-capitalistic. There's a difference. He wants a mercantile or what some people call state capitalism, but a state system of a managed economy. But what at the core is is a belief that in race, in soil, so blood and soil is at the core of their movement. The core of National Socialism is anti-Christian. Yes, you can talk about the German or the Nazi church thingy. That was just an attempt to subvert Christianity to National Socialism over time. It is not, and yes, Hitler makes pro-Christian statements. That's just, again, camouflage to get elected. But at its core, it is anti-Christian. It is race. It wants to replace Christianity in its religious type belief elements is in a either paganistic or pantheistic type viewpoints, and there's some conflict on that. They were paganists, they were pantheists, and there were a few that would be described themselves as, I don't know, atheists types. But this is very much at the core of National Socialism. One of the least important elements of belief or dogma in National Socialism is its economic policies. It wants at its core, it wants a managed economy, not a free market economy. But it wants a managed economy. But it is not idealistic or has no specific ideology in how that economy is managed. It could look like fascism. This is where a lot of fascists mistake National Socialism as a similar ideology. It is not. They are both corporatist, and we'll get to some of this, and nationalistic and authoritarian. So in those they agree. They're corporate, the sort of the corporate body of the people. They are authoritarian, meaning it's authority to the state. They want that, and it also generally, because race. See, Hitler is not a nationalist. Hitler is a racist, and I don't just mean a racist as we don't like those people, whoever they are, but he views it as race. To him, it is an anathema that there are Germans living outside of Germany. So it isn't a Germanness or an Austrianness or whatever. It is this German race thing that they all need to be unified. And I'll go back to that. Wilhelm Gustav's death, I do believe at its core, saves Switzerland from being invaded. I think it would have eventually been invaded, but because a successful Hitler cannot see a reasonably large groups of Germans living outside of Germany. Now, maybe after it's invaded, the Italian bits go to Italy, the French bits go to France, the Romanche, or whatever you pronounce it. I don't know where they end up, but he can't abide Germans, not people of the German race, can't be part of it. So you can sort of mistake race as he sees it for nationalism, but really it is a racist view of everything, and an Aryanist, I guess just an Aryanist view, National Socialism. So any kind of ethnic group can become fascist, but only Germans can become National Socialists. Yes, I know there's Nazi-type movements in other countries. Some of them may be now claiming that Slavics are the super race or whatever. And of course, any other race can decide out in the world that they are the super race, but they are not following National Socialism of Hitler. It is specific to Aryanism. Very specific to Aryanism. Again, like we can say, anybody can be nationalist and socialist without being a Nazi, if you know what I mean. So, but you can take your sort of some of your views that people call Nazis are super racial type people, but they are not the original Nazis if it's relating to another race. If you want to expand, Hitler generally acknowledged that Anglo-Saxons were Germanic peoples, but they weren't Germans, so they could sort of be their own, country and whatever. So they might on his racial scale of things, they might be another, superior group in the world, but all Germans needed to be him. So that is what sort of National Socialism. Now, fascism is similar in some ways. Generally speaking, the more I look into the economy of Germany versus the economy of Italy, the less fascistic I see the economic system of Germany compared to the system, at least idealistically set up. Not maybe, there's practical real worlds versus idealism. Less fascism than fascism. So fascism is a corporate ideology, a corporatist ideology, meaning the corporation of the people, both as in Italian as well as different groups and regions and groups of people within society. Factory workers versus farm workers versus northern, southern, whatever. Doesn't really matter, but it is a corporatist element that looks to the state. It believes in sort of strong welfare type policies, but recognizes the limited right of ownership, but the general positive benefit of ownership by people. And I say that, and again, I'm no fascist ideological expert, but you don't have a right to ownership, whether that means to your lunch or to your house or to your big car factory, if that ownership, having that ownership is needed by the state. Your rights are limited by the needs of the state. So you do sort of have a limited right of ownership so long as it doesn't conflict with the rights or needs of the state. So yes, you can own a Fiat or some major, car company, either as an individual or as in, corporate shares that all the workers and all these different people have shares and can buy and sell them and so on. You have the right to that so long as that doesn't conflict with the needs of the state or the society. So it gives that as a limited right, but it also sees it as a good working benefit of it, so that, hey, if I come up with a new widget that makes life better, I can then get a factory and start producing it and grow and become very rich. And Mussolini and the fascists are very happy that a person who was very poor develops a widget and becomes very rich. They're happy with that. But if that widget somehow is bad for the state, or if how he's doing it is bad for the state, they will step in and do something about it. Not sure what, depends on what the widget is and what they want to do about it, whether they want to control who gets the widget or control how many widgets are made a year, or because maybe the widgets put somebody out of work or whatnot. But yeah, we need to do that, but slowly, because we need to be able to shift the people that go out of work to something else. So we don't want this happening overnight to put the widgets out. Could be a automatic bread slicer. So the guy who was by hand slicing the bread, now it does automatically. Well, yeah, we're going to need the automatic bread slicer, but we also don't want all of the bread slicers, the millions of bread slicers in Italy, to go out of business overnight. Could say pizza makers or something, but it doesn't matter. Go out of business overnight. So we've got to gradually put this in so that we can shift the workers to a new thing. See, that's what I talk about, is your limited rights because they can't conflict. So fascism is also, fascism has that element, but they also have a very strong social support system within it. They don't want people starving. They don't want people homeless. They generally want medical care provided for people. They want a lot of social welfare programs, but in a functional sense, I would say. So, and fascism tends to be very strongly Christian, and since fascism is mostly found, at least in the 30s and 40s, in Catholic countries, it is often supportive of Catholicism, although, as you see, they do come to the concordiat with the papacy. And the very young get to still be going through religious schools, though, of course, Mussolini messes that up. If you want to control the minds of the young, you want to control the minds of the people, you got to get them before they are, about 6 or 7 years old. You got to get them before. You got to get them by the time they're like 5 years old to start educating them. And if you can do that, so he messed up allowing the church to run the schools at a young age. But generally speaking, within the within the parameters of what's good for the state, they are supportive of Catholicism. Now, you do find some, like in Greece and some other places, where you find fascistic movements that are, and some in some Protestant regions too, fascistic movements that are supporting non-Catholic churches. But generally speaking, they strongly support Christian beliefs in the service of the state. So that is where it is very different than communism. I mean, National Socialism, really what I meant, but also very different than communism, where at the core of communism, you believe it is the opiate of the masses, or Marxism, I should say, opiate of the masses. Yes, you can have a communistic viewpoint that rejects elements of Marx and believe that religion isn't the opiate of the masses. You could read here, if I wanted to switch over and scroll to it, the church, what's it called? The revolutionary theology of Christianity that the democratic socialists want to put forward too. So you can still believe in God. If you are a socialist, you're just not buying everything in Marxism. Okay, so that's sort of fascism. It inherently is not racist. I'm not saying Italian fascists weren't racist, but it isn't an inherent or a core element. Oh, they've won. We got to send down some troops down there. But a core element of their society. Mussolini wants to take over at least sort of coastal Yugoslavia, if you will, and wants to take over Greece and other places. And he wants to, at least this is what they say, and doesn't seem to be contradicted in their viewpoint, they want to, over time, mold people into being new Romans, if you will. Presumably speaking Italian, eating pasta. You go on with some cliches, but and it's probably not going to, you're not going to show up in one day and tear all of the road signs down somewhere in the Dalmatian coast, whether it's Croatian or Bosnian or Serbian or Montenegrin or Albanian or whatever, tear them all down and put up Italian road signs because they know they're going to confuse the locals. But they're probably going to add Italian to the road sign, so you'll have it in whatever local language and then also in Italian, have it in both, and things like this. And you're going to presumably be adding Italian language education to the school systems and other things like that over time to create new Italians. It isn't inherently a racist ideology. I'm sure most of them thought black people were inferior to Italians and whatnot, but that, I was talking to the other person, in the past, particularly in the 18th and 19th century, people would mistake ignorance for stupidity. And this I see in people who had slaves in America, reading some of the stuff, had slaves, that they saw that these dumb people, or whatever they would call them, were dumb, and so they must be stupid, but in fact they were just uneducated. I'm not talking about necessarily an individual, because some individuals are dumb and some individuals are smart, and I don't think that I don't believe, I could be wrong, but I don't believe that none of that is racially based. There aren't races that are smarter as a group than other people. I believe that they are enculturated in their society differently, and so they have general group tendencies based upon the culture and education and whatnot of the people. And so, yeah, I'm sure that a lot of Italians thought non-Europeans were somehow racially inferior. I'm not talking about that, but that is not a core element of fascism. again, lots of communists, and a famous one, Che Guevara. All of you people out there with the Che shirts, he really was anti-African, anti-black, because there were blacks in Cuba. He really was a racist. Did not like black people. Thought they were inferior. Well, maybe not like is wrong, but thought they were quite inferior. I do know for a while he shaved off his beard and was helping in some revolutionary movements in Africa, and that reinforced his racist views about Africans. This is why they're not African Americans. These are Africans, but also he has these views before he goes there, because there is a large minority of black people that were brought in as slaves into Cuba that are, by the time of Che Guevara's activities in Cuba and whatnot, living there and growing up and whatnot, they're enculturated into Cuban society, but he sees them as an inferior people. So you can be a Hispanic racist communist, you can be a European racist communist. They still want to bring the joys of group suffering to Africa and spread communism there, but you can still see yourself as superior to them, even though you're a communist, because we have, at least I know of Che in particular, but we can probably find other examples of communists who are also racists. But so, like I say, at its core, fascism is not racist. They are highly nationalistic, and they are like also a corporatist ideology. Now, other right-wing belief systems. To be just because you want a non-democratic society doesn't mean that you either want fascism or National Socialism, or you're a fascist or a National Socialist. Again, this is the left spreading these terms around. You will find nationalists. Most famous one, I would say, of dictatorial status is Francisco Franco. He was a nationalist. Sunar, I think is how you pronounce his name, was the foreign minister primarily, and definitely during this time, the 30s, 40s, during the war. He was a phalangist, so a fascist, but of Spanish variety. So Francisco Franco had fascists, phalangists, as significant members of his government, but he was not a fascist or phalangist, never belonging to the party. And from my, again, limited, again, I don't see, I say limited because I don't speak or read Spanish to any, I'm around it enough in my society, trust me, that I can pick up on words and speeches, but I can't really get, and I can't really read, anything. So I haven't really read him, or, obviously I'm not reading German, but I'm reading good translation. So, but I really don't see Franco as any sort of crypto-fascist. He is an authoritarian only because he's forced to be so. He was happy to be a general. It was only once the coup fails against the increasingly radical socialist governments, and this is, I say radical in that there were hit squads, sometimes police hit squads that were covertly operating, going against landowners and other people of the right, newspaper publishers and other, significant people of the right, hit squads, killing people, and then the police sort of showing up, taking a report, and disappearing, and not pursuing the criminals. And to the point that at times the criminals were, that's him, he did it, I saw it, and the police doing absolutely nothing. And then the next night, the guy who identified the left-wing hit squads, because sometimes they're anarchists, sometimes they're communist or socialist or whatever, he's now dead. So the police not doing anything, so they were very much, and sometimes it was the police, covertly, individuals working for the left that were the hit squads at night. So not doing it with their badges on, but doing it at night. So they see this happening in Spain before the coup attempt against the Spanish government. The coup attempt by the junta of generals fails, and then and only then do they bring Francisco Franco in as the leader of the nationalist coalition. So he goes through his career as a nationalist, and of course turns the government on his death, and now what looks to be relative stability, over to the monarchy. So does that make him a monarchist? Maybe. But nationalism is a pragmatic right-wing government, if you will. Can have voting representative elements within it, often of only approved parties. There were Bourbonists and Carlists, two different, actually they both support two different descents of the Bourbon monarchy. So there's two different monarchist parties in Spain. You know, you have the Phalangists, you have various, and I don't know all, various other sort of right-wing and conservative type groups in Spain at this time, and parties, and those are allowed to continue to operate. And that obviously under Franco you couldn't be running as a, you know, for election in the Communist Party, or, you know, I don't know all of which were banned, but of the acceptable ones there was a limited representative within government within Spain. That still doesn't make him not a dictator, but it's a pragmatic sort of solve problems of the right wing. That's nationalism. Nationalists might be crypto-Nazis or fascists, but you know they're not, particularly when you have open fascist parties that have foreign ministers, which is normally a very high-ranking cabinet member, as part of the government. So if you were really a ideological phalangist, you could come out and be so and be part of politics. So that nationalism is different. Now, there are other right-wing groups that have a tendency towards authoritarian governments that aren't nationalists, that aren't fascists, that aren't National Socialists. It's often said by some libertarians, they're working quietly to take over the world, to become dictators of the world and then leave everybody alone. Because, see, what a libertarian wants to do is to take over the world, become the supreme ruler of the world, and then go out to lunch and never do anything until somebody else wants to take over the world, and their only job is to stop somebody else taking over the world so that everybody can be free to do whatever they want. Sort of, no government, or the most minimum amount of government possible, court system, minimal police system, that's what the libertarians, quite honestly, at least on a big national level, would probably be, if they trusted whatever person to truly go out to lunch and not ever show up at his office, they would be happy with a dictatorship like that. That isn't going to happen in the real world, but ideologically, you could have that sort of a right-wing dictatorship. Other sorts of right-wing governments can be monarchists, and of course we can look back through history to the modern day. They may very much want a parliament, or they very much may want to be, the Sun King, an absolute ruler. It can have all kinds of shades, but they want to have a traditional authority. So the right, and this is part of the reason why the left normally does so well compared to the right is often fractured, because you will have monarchists. You will, at least particularly in the 30s and 40s, you'll have monarchists, you'll have fascists, you'll have nationalists, you'll have sort of conservative market Democrats kind of thing. They want, they're sort of, American Republicans, if you will. So there's this, various right-wing group that is not unified like we see on the left. And the left is just how far left are you? So if you're extreme left, you're going to support the minimal left candidate over the whatever the right is, because so you all sort of are supporting everything on the left, trying to move it further towards the left. That's why I see the left differently than the right, because the right is fractured in different belief systems. Some are traditional, some are relatively, especially in the 30s, because you look at fascism starts with Mussolini. He's a socialist. His parents are, I would say, rather revolutionary socialists. I'm not experts on them. They, admire the Mexican president Benito Juarez and named their son Benito after him. And he grows up. Mussolini is running his socialist newspaper, sort of encounters World War I, and as part of that, becomes a sort of ultra-nationalist as well, and rejects what shall we say, having the means of production owned by the state. He still wants to support, public health care, support for the needy and all those kind of socialist programs, but no longer supports the state owning the means of production on a general thing. The Nazis are less, how do I put this? So they came and started occupying this. Even though I never got a garrison down there. The Nazis are less authoritative on economic systems. They only sort of become dictatorial on the economy once Speer is taking over and the war is happening. Before that, it's always asking these big government magnates to do things, and they sometimes agree and sometimes very much disagree, and they never do anything about it if the big people disagree until the war is in Speer. So you have these economic ideological differences there. So that's sort of my not too quick take on National Socialism, Fascism, Socialism, and Communism, and why I sometimes very much lump the left in together, because I believe on the left, again, their ends are the same to get there, but it's their means. Some are revolutionaries, some are gradualists, some are consensus. I mean, they're only going to move as far and as fast as the society's consensus. Others are gradual, but they want to push it, which is what we're seeing in the modern American Democratic Party. Push, same-sex marriage. Push, push. Not just, we're slowly, changing it, but they're even push it faster than the consensus. And then, of course, you have the revolutionaries. And so that's how I see the difference. And yes, I do know that there are some people that, and it's only because your current consensus is only 5 steps down the road, not 200 steps down the road. They just believe that eventually they're going to, whether you or your next generation or the generation that, they're just going to keep moving you down that road towards ultimate socialism, where on the right it's a different matter. I want to thank you for listening to me. I've gotten through sort of rambling, but I wanted to cover some of these topics. I think it's important to understand what's going on today in the U.S. and other places. So thanks for watching. Thanks for liking the video if you would. If you want to share this to others, I know it's long and rambling, but maybe they get some use out of it, please do so on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, wherever. Really would appreciate that. And I would also like to hear your thoughts. I don't know how much I'm going to, if you give me big walls of text, I'll read it, but I may give you very short 1.1, 0.2, 0.3, that maybe just a couple, 3 words. So I prefer to talk than type in detail. So, please don't be offended if I'm being a little short on the answers, just because I don't want to spend huge amounts of time typing. But I do want to hear from you, and I like to hear, and I like that I'm reaching people who don't agree with me, and my goal is not to get you to agree with me, Because if you fundamentally disagree with me, I don't think I'm going to get you to have an epiphany and go, oh, Gamer's right, I'm with him now. No, but what I want you to do is, oh, he has a point. Still disagree, but he has a point. It's a reasonable point, but I disagree. That's what I want to get out of those of you who significantly disagree with my views, is to see my point, to see my view, to maybe still disagree, but understand where we're coming from and why we're coming from, and that we have, maybe not you don't agree, but a reasonable point in what and why we view and do things. So, see you next time for more Hearts of Iron.